Yeah. All right. What's up, everybody? You are here. Let me start again. All right. What's up, everybody? You are here with your host, Chris Carr, and we are going to be discussing the Create model presented by Creative Muse. And today I have a special guest. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jessica Straw. I'm by profession a UX designer and a filmmaker at heart.
Can you
Yeah.
explain to people that don't already know what a UX designer is or does?
So UX stands for user interface. Not sure quite why they used an X instead of an E. Probably about exchange. But yeah, I look at web pages and design because all pages are built out of pieces. Like you have like a headline, picture, grid, table, whatever. So those are all components, and a UX designer, designs those components, thinking about the user and their experience with that component. Yeah.
Nice. As a creative, right, you have more than one medium. So as of now, like your job is doing UX, but what are other ways, and you mentioned film, what are other ways you express your creativity?
I've always drawn, like I've always been a drawer. Like my mom said that when I was like a kid, like a toddler, we had a front porch with bricks, and she would find me like drawing a mermaid in every single brick. So it was kind of like, I don't know, I think it's always like art, like expressing myself that way, especially like drawing, which is kind of my entry into art, uh, was like a form of relaxation. Yeah.
Can you expound on that? Like when you say your entry to art, what are some of the different avenues that you've taken that go from you drawing to now working in a digital space and doing user interface?
I mean, well, not to be cynical, but with like my most recent switch into like UX design or more computer sales, like that type. I mean, it's follow the money. Like we all have to have a job, and that was the worlds that we're heading in. But I mean, because before that, I was a key art designer. I would create poster artwork for TV shows like new seasons or like a Broadway play or things like that, which was much more creative and like visual and, thinking about communicating with people through symbols. Um, that always really interested me, I think, because it was like communicating on a bunch of different levels, not just through words. Yeah.
Right. And prior to that, you had, I believe, a website or a magazine that you had been putting out. Can you tell me a little bit about?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I guess I called it an online magazine instead of a blog, because although like I was the primary writer and contributor to it, there were other people that I would work with, like photographers and other people writing who would go to shows. And that came about kind of by accident. I think I was really interested in fashion because okay, we're kind of going backwards, but it went from drawing to I want to put these drawings onto clothing, and I wasn't able to find t-shirts or that I thought were like worthy of the illustration. I don't know. I just didn't like them. So I started designing my own clothes. So I started a fashion label ish that was all homemade, where I would screen print fabric and sew into clothes. And then I found out that I really enjoyed the fashion shoots, like thinking about the sets, thinking about the mood, the story that it would create. And so that transformed into, well, hey, why don't I really like this song? What was it? Common People by Pulp. And so I wanted to make a music video with my friends and like involve my friends and also be like, hey, I want to, organize this video shoot. And when I cut it, like, it'll be, as people just starting out, like here, now you have an example of makeup or hair or, photography. So I was always like creating projects. And then one night I was out and like I started a website. And I named it Pretext Social Club because it was kind of like a reason to do something other than the reason itself. And then somebody was like, I guess they mistook it for like a magazine. We're like, okay, well, I guess you got to go start like, reviewing bands or like interviewing people. And I was like, yeah, I guess, or like making more content. So I was like, okay, yeah, that seems like what I should do. So
And so
yeah.
for you, since we're going to be talking about the create model, for folks who aren't familiar with it, I work with Creative Muse, which is a arts and education program where it's twofold. Like one, we want to make sure artists are paid equitably for doing either after school programs, art programs with youth, programs with adults, but that the programming is, I think, unique and custom to the community or group of people we're working with. So when exploring this create model, we're asking us as like, teachers or educators, but also like the people we work with to explore creativity from a different point of view. And so one perspective we're taking is like connectivity. And you mentioned like your connection to art in various ways being um personal, like internally driven, like when your mom found you, you're just like drawing on bricks, to having a monetary element, like for work you found ways to still include like creativity, and then things in between to where something leads to something else. So can you talk a little bit about how you connect to art, or like what's your personal connection to art, and then following we'll talk about your interest when you want to present art to the outside world.
My connection to art. I don't know. I guess it's hard to understand the question in a way because it's so intrinsic to who I am. Like I've always been an artist.
Follow
I
that.
don't
That's the question I'm asking. Yes. What does it mean to have always
like,
been an artist?
or like not just an artist, but like a creative. Like when I was a child, I think my parents got a little exhausted by me always, coming to them like, I want to do something, I want to do something. So there was this closet underneath our stairs that was just filled with like crafts type stuff. And I would go in there and just come up with things from whatever. And if I really, like, I think, okay, so my connection to creativity is it's like, I don't know. I feel like an artist is like really a way of life too. It's a way of like approaching all aspects. It's like, people say think out of the box, but sometimes we are in a box. So it's like take what you have and then figure out what can be done with it and all the different ways it can be composed. And like to me, that is art. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. Like at what age were you when you had that craft closet?
Now I'm gonna have to ask my mom for certain after this, but I think like I don't know, when do kids start playing with their hands and drawing?
I don't know anything about children. Or I guess I'm asking that to ask, um, in different stages of your life, then, like you've always just made things, like you've always just been creative. Can you explain? Because some people aren't like that. Some people, they didn't get into creativity until certain points or it fades in and out. What's it like for you to always just make things? Where's that come from?
um I don't know. I guess it's like I'm a very visual person. So if I see something, I kind of want to see it. If I have an idea, I want to see it visually. So like visual in that, like, because I was talking to somebody earlier who is very not visual. So like when I was in high school, when I had to study for a test, I would write all of the information on one sheet so that when I took the test, I could recall the image of the test sheet. So it's like I have very clear images of things or like moments or layouts or frames, and I want to see it. Like one thing that made me really fast as like a professional graphic designer was, and I didn't even realize it, but like, like other colleagues or coworkers would be spending hours like doing different layouts. Whereas I didn't realize like I was coming up with and like actually seeing them in my brain before even making them. So I'm able to do that enough. It's
Yeah, that makes sense.
so,
So
yeah,
to build on that, you kind of have an innate ability or skill set when it comes to certain elements of art in terms of being able to visualize or have an interest, like there are things you said you wanted to put out into the world, as well as you've, in a way, I wish there was a better phrasing, like you've educated or trained yourself or built skills. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, did you do art in school? Did you take design classes? How do you take that raw ability and then continue it as you grow and evolve?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning, like when I was a kid, my mom, I think in the summer she would, I did art classes. So it was neat. Like I got to, use clay, things that I wouldn't otherwise, materials that I wouldn't otherwise use at home. I got to play with. And then of course, like in, elementary school or middle school, like I remember I built my mom like a cookie jar, like wrapped in flowers. It was very intricate, but a lot of figures too. I was like really obsessed with like drawing figures and profiles and like other people. I was never one to, and I'm just starting to, but I was never one to draw. Like I would want to see it to draw it. I wouldn't draw from memory. Yeah.
Okay. And then
But
as you went through high school or college, did you continue taking art classes or design classes?
yeah, so when I got out of high school, so the summer, I guess like one of the summers there was the Winston-Salem School of the Arts. I grew up in North Carolina and it wasn't too far from where I lived. And I remember I applied to go there for my senior year of high school. And I was not accepted. So I did the summer program instead, the summer before my high school. So there I did like a lot of more formal, like figure drawing and hand drawing and faces and like improving my skill, because I think that drawing really is a skill. Like I don't think people have, I don't think someone has to be like, I do, it's kind of like singing, like everybody has a voice. So like, I don't know. I think like drawing is a developed skill at times.
Right.
And then yeah, in high school I applied. There was the North Carolina School of the Arts, or not the North Carolina School of the Arts, North Carolina State University has a design school or college of design. And I applied. I didn't understand what, like they had graphic design, industrial design, architecture, and art design. And I think the same summer before high school, I ended the Winston-Salem program to go. My mom really wanted me to go to, and she was smart. She really wanted me to go to this week-long program at the North Carolina State University College of Design. Because I think she already knew, being an adult, she could see that I was, had artistic skills, but like this would, keep me safe and, with a job, working in a corporate, like being able to like work in the more conventional settings. So, but even after that program, I still really didn't have like a strong sense of what all of them were. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. I was kind of like a high school rebel. But when I got into art and design, I don't know, I quickly recognized that it wouldn't benefit me. Like I think I had seen Savannah School of the Arts, which was really good. Now I feel like I'm talking badly about the different schools, but I knew art and design was more fine arts, and I wanted something where it's like, if I'm going to go to 4 years of school, like I really wanted to be able to like get a job afterwards.
Right.
It's like, sadly, like, it's like, it is what it is. I don't agree with it. I wish everybody could go to art school.
Well, that kind of brings me to the next thing. So you ended up going to North Carolina State for design?
I went for art and design, which is more of a fine arts program. And then I transferred, I had to apply, and I transferred to the graphic design program or the industrial design program. And then when I was in industrial design, I jump around a lot. So then when I was in industrial design, I was really into furniture design, like working with my hands. But then I realized after there was a professor who told me, when you graduate from industrial design, you're either going to be what was I did not say this. This was him said to me. He said, you're gonna design car door handles or parking garages, or what I also realized, you're gonna go work for Pixar because you learn all of those 3D modeling software. And a lot of people who study industrial design go to Pixar because that's more creative. Because I think you do end up, yeah. Well, no, the parking garages was the architecture school. Um, so I had, yeah. So once I was in industrial design, I realized I was having more fun designing the sales materials, I guess, like the presentations, which is graphic design. So then that brought me to my journey to applying for graphic design, jumping through a bunch of hoops because they're very strict in their acceptance, and then getting in and graduating college late to finish that program.
Okay, so that also rolls into then the next aspect of like, and this is just my definition of it. When I think of art, I find it to be similar to philosophy, where it doesn't have a purpose other than itself. Whereas, like, as an educator, I know that yes, I'm supposed to educate people, but there's also an education system I have to uphold, or there's a purpose of why people are getting education to like go into a workforce that I uphold. Art's this place to where you make it for yourself. Design, in my opinion, of course, there's arguments about this throughout history of time, is more involving of use and other people's engagement with it. So now, can you talk a little bit about, as a designer, how you connect with others through your creativity, or how creativity has been a connective line between you and communicating with others?
Well, I think yes, there isn't a lot of control with graphic design. Like I have to design what is asked of me, but I think because I speak in the language of symbols, like I know what something is communicating, maybe on a passing deeper level than the person telling me what to design. So like in a way, like the graphic designer can act as a safety measure between the message that is intended to be delivered and how it's actually delivered. And like I take that like really seriously with graphic design, because you know there's been so many times I'm trying to think of a specific, but you know, where like certain copies written in like a poster or an image representing something, and it's not the read. It's like somebody in the room has got to like not be the person saying, oh, this looks great, and like actually see the thing for what it is outside of the room and how others might see it. Like
So then,
I think that's my biggest.
do you think that then, in a way, like your involvement in that art process kind of puts you in the perspective of others, or like allows you to then be connected with others? Or I guess I'm in the idea of like connectivity through art. When you're making things for other people, like what does that do for you? Or like what's that kind of like?
Well, it depends on the person, you know? It's like designing something for you is going to feel a lot different than designing something for, you know, my job or, you know, a past job. Yeah, because I think design, like, especially in the worlds that we live in, this very capitalistic consumerism world, graphic design is very important, like making something look professional before, you know, like, you know, fake it till you make it. Like one thing about my online magazine site was at the time I designed it knowing what all the trends were and like what other magazines, like I did my research, I applied all my graphic design skills that professionally got me jobs into like this project. And people thought like, I don't know, that it was making money. And it's like, nope. Like, you know, like they would be like, oh, who do you work for? And I'm like, it's me. Like, so like graphic design has that power to like, yeah. So yeah, I think when I'm designing for like a friend or somebody that I care about, I'm thinking about that. Whereas when I'm working for an employer who is just trying to sell something, I'm thinking about it in the more protective way, where I'm thinking about the audience. I mean, I'm thinking about the audience in both cases, but it's just much stronger where yes, I'm like putting myself in other shoes, like thinking about different people and backgrounds and how they might receive something. And, you know, it's like I can say and speak up when I see those things, but unfortunately, yeah, sometimes I don't get to change it.
Right. Now, for our final section, before we have to take off, I was wondering, I see all these Post-its behind you, and you had mentioned
Mhm.
being a writer and filmmaker earlier. Can you talk a little bit about what those Post-its are and what they are part of?
So in all my experience with all the things and our creative pursuits I went down, I realized finally that you know, well, not necessarily filmmaking, I really want to make a TV show. It kind of puts everything that I am interested in creatively into one thing. Um, and so I started off, you know, it was really complicated, like how the idea came to me. Um, and it was more of a feeling that I couldn't quite unwrap. Like, actually, it goes back to when I was in college. We had an assignment where we had to make a 3D representation of our design process. And what I built was like, it was a wood panel with like all these plexiglass plates. And on each plexiglass, there was like a dot. So if you looked at it from the side, it looked like the dots, it was all chaos. But then when you looked at it from, you know, straight on, everything was clear. And that's kind of how my design process is, where it's a lot of things that don't make sense, but then once I connect all the dots, it, you know, it unravels into a line, and then I see what it is. So these Post-its are a mix of Post-its and tarot cards, because I also realized to untangle that meaning jumble. It helped me to do tarot spreads of either like character development or plot, you know, character arcs. Because I knew who that character was. I had a feel for that character and their importance. But then, you know, to kind of bring things like I love having restrictions. Like I feel like the more restrictions I have, the more I can, you know, get creative and like pinpoint something that's more detailed. So behind me is a card that like lining is like each character is represented by a card. And then you have like their timeline, each card representing like a plot point in their timeline of the show. And then below are notes for what those specific things are that they are going through and how they are woven together. And then each color correlates with a character so that I can keep track. I mean, it's not always perfect because this went up at different times, but each color is supposed to correlate with a different character so I can keep track of the story.
And you're unraveling this in order to write a script for a TV series.
Yeah, well, it's actually progressed a lot past the wall. It's now like the first script is written. It's like, I mean, it could be done, but it's not going to be done until it's shot. I think it can always be tweaked. So yeah, I mean, the 3 seasons are kind of outlined out. I'm working on kind of consolidating and refining all of the information into like a TV treatment that's more succinct.
And in developing this idea and working out your characters and your plot lines, how much of you is connected to this project? Is this something that's very abstract, esoteric, like, oh, I read a book about this, so I thought it'd be fun as an exercise? Or is this something that you feel very attached to?
Very attached to. And it's funny having you ask me that. But yeah, I'm very attached to it. Yeah, it's very meta. It's a very meta story. I believe in writing what you know or what you experience. I see it as it's a world builder. There's like a origin story that goes back 13,000 years. There's a character that is inspired by, you know, events that have occurred in my life to form who I am today. Yeah, so I'm very, I do feel in a way it's a project that I've kind of been, not kind of, I have been building my whole life to gain the experience to create. Yeah.
Good, good. So before we leave, if you were to speak to a young person like yourself at, let's say, when you were 14 years old, and and being direct, and I hope it's not either trite or reductive, as a young woman in arts, what's something you could have benefited from? And not to say that you didn't have support, and not to say that you didn't already do very well, but what could you have benefited from as a young person, and more specifically as a young soon-to-be woman, in arts?
Um, uh, I guess like it's so interesting because sexism permeates every aspect of life. So, and being an artist, I've dated a lot of artists. So, I've had people really close to me that I cared about tell me that I'm not good at art as a way to attack. So I guess, just to try and not listen, because it's like it's one way, it's like one vulnerability more to like cut a woman down.
Yeah, that's a really, I think, poignant element, and also ties into our create model, where the R is for resilience. And to think, as an artist, you sometimes have to be delusional to have the amount of faith in yourself to not either give up or to ignore people who are choosing to use that vulnerability point, or choosing to try to attack you by going after your artistic involvement, or products, or what have you. So I think that's
Yeah.
very like relevant what you just said.
Yeah. I mean, I had in college, uh, I mean, I hated it sometimes. Like the teacher would I remember a teacher like pointed out my project, and it caused a lot of resentment in our class because there was punishment. It was a complicated thing. I won't go into it, but like there was resentment caused by it towards me. And I remember like a group of boys, I mean, they're young college men, just doing various things that like just to the kind of, made me understand sexism on a deeper level. It was like they were never going to respect me. And if I did well, it was just going to make them hate me more. So yeah. uh
Right. No, that's I think that's a unfortunate, yet I'm glad you were able to bring that to the surface for people that see this or hear this, and to the folks out there that make art, and who are kind of facing that type of dismissal and disparagement, to keep rocking, keep working.
yeah.
And I appreciate you sitting for this, and being so honest and transparent about your work and your process. Is there anything you'd like to tell the world before we head out?
uh I hope I didn't offend anybody.
All right, perfect. We here to do the truth. All right. And so I need people to, as long as obviously there was no maliciousness, we're not here to try to tear people down, but the world needs truth right now, in my opinion. And that's one of the values I see in art. In that, if art remains true to whatever it is its creators decide, that truth to me has a meaning and importance that I can't find in many other places of the world. I don't find it in the politics. I don't find it now in the academic philosophers. I don't find it in the educators. The artists, for me, are my last hope of having any understanding of truth in the world and the universe and ourselves right now. So thank you.
Well, art is political. So yeah.
And we can, I fully believe that. I love how art can serve in the political sphere, but I don't trust politicians. I'm gonna listen to artists more than I'm gonna listen to politicians. That's more what I meant by,
They got the message. Yeah, they
Yeah.
got the message.
All right. I will see you soon, and keep rocking.
Bye.
All right, peace. Pause, stop recording.